My dad stated. You're an absolute pushover. Observe your sister. She covers our expenses. Then I replied, what of the cash I provide you each month? He inquired, which funds? My sister gulped heavily, and everything exploded. Okay, listen up. Because there are moments in your life that hit you so hard, they rearrange your entire reality. For me, it was my own father, sitting across the dinner table, looking right through me, and asking, what money? Can you even imagine that? The betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut I never saw coming. I'm Chris, 32 years old, the oldest kid, been a Marine since I was 19. I'm that steady guy who sends texts starting with checking in and ending with I'll handle it. That's just who I am. I don't drink much. I fold laundry so tight it could be military issue. And I absolutely hate loose ends. So, there we were, Sunday night, at my parents' kitchen table. The good plates were out, for no particular reason. And my dad, he just stared at me like I was a window that desperately needed Windex. He tapped the table, his voice cutting like a knife. You're a total doormat. Look at your sister. She pays our bills. I blinked. My mind scrambled. Dad, what? He leaned back, a smug, satisfied look on his face, like he'd just landed a perfect hit. My mom made that lemon face she always does when she's trying to be neutral, trying to disappear. And my sister, Emma? She just stared down at her phone like it had suddenly become her lifeline. I heard my own voice, way too calm, asking, and the money I send you every single month? Dad just shrugged. Shrugged. What money? He said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The whole room tilted. My world just shifted. I looked at Emma. She swallowed hard, her eyes glued to her phone, refusing to meet mine. My hands went cold, even with the oven's heat still radiating onto my knuckles. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked, totally oblivious, like the world was normal. Say it. I told her, my voice low. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, avoiding my gaze. Chris, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Dad pointed his fork at me, his face reddening. Don't raise your voice in this house. Then answer me, I said, looking back at him. What money? I repeated his exact words, needing to hear them from his mouth again. I needed to grasp the sheer, insulting stupidity of that lie. My phone buzzed on the table. A banking notification. Another auto transfer. Another tiny red dot on a map marking the places I'd funded from 7 time zones away. I looked at my father. What money? Emma's throat clicked. Chris, just please. And that's how it started. One sentence that felt like a slap. One question that split my family wide open. I didn't storm out. I didn't even stand up. I just sat there, staring at the 3 people who claimed to love me, and realized, with a sickening certainty, that none of them knew me at all. Okay, I said quietly, the word tasting like ash. Then let's talk. I grew up in a house where love sounded like chores. And we'll see. My dad worked construction until his knee gave out, then bounced between jobs. Mom taught piano lessons in the living room. Emma was the sunshine, student council, soft sweaters. That laugh everyone said was contagious. Me? I was the kid who fixed the Wi-Fi and took the trash out before anyone asked. The one who didn't rock the boat, because somebody had to keep it upright. At 19, I enlisted in the Marines. People think the Corps breaks you down. For me, it did the opposite. It made sense. You wake up, you move your body, you do what you said you'd do. If you mess up, you own it. It's all right there, in plain language. No sighing. No guilt soup. My first deployment, I learned to breathe through the noise, rotor wash, dust, radios barking in 3 directions. I turned 21 eating cold chow in a tent while a guy named Alvarez showed me photos of his twins. We were kids, really, with grown-up gear and a calendar that felt 8 months too long. Money was simple then. I sent some home. Started small. $150 when mom's car needed brakes. Then $300 for property tax that surprised Dad, even though it arrives on the same date every year. Then $500 because Emma didn't want to ask, but the textbooks were insane this semester. She called me the best big brother, and I saved that voicemail like it was a letter from a different planet. Over time, simple turned into a system. I set up autopay to a joint account Mom had opened for emergencies. I didn't ask who else had access. That's on me. Then came the family group chat. Rent's due again. Heat bill doubled. Washer died. I sent what I could. Sometimes it was half my paycheck. Sometimes it was my whole re-enlistment bonus, split into careful chunks so the withdrawals wouldn't trigger fraud alerts. The notifications became a rhythm. I'd land, check in with my squad, hit the green button on the banking app, and think, this keeps them safe. This is what a son does. And yeah, some of it was pride. I liked saying, I've got you. I liked being the person who could make an ugly number just disappear. It felt like control in a life that didn't offer much of it. But things shifted when Emma moved back home after college. She got a remote job with a title that had 5 words and absolutely no salary transparency. Suddenly, instead of "we're short on gas," it was "we're looking at a bigger place, and we should really upgrade the kitchen." My parents started saying "we," like the 3 of them were a single organism with a shared Pinterest account. The first time I really felt the floor tilt was on a video call from the barracks. Emma aimed her camera just low enough to show off the new marble backsplash. "We did it on a budget," she chirped. "I covered most of it." Mom beamed beside her. "They didn't say thank you." I didn't ask. Then I saw the exact same backsplash on my banking statement. Home Improvement LLC. In 3 neat installments that matched the exact days Emma had texted me cute photos of the dog. Little things stacked up. December, we splurged on a better sofa. Dad's back, you know. March, we finally fixed the roof before the rains. June, we had to buy Emma a new laptop. Her job depends on it. Meanwhile, my boots had holes. I patched them with duct tape and skipped leave to grab extra pay because, "You're young. You can handle it." I told myself it was temporary. Mom would say, "When your father's knee heals," like it was a plot twist arriving any minute now. Dad would say, "When I get back on a site," like the phone would ring if he stared at it long enough. Emma would say, "I'll pay you back. I promise," in a voice that made it sound like a fairy tale with no deadline. The tension didn't break big. It frayed. First fray, a cousin's barbecue. My uncle joked, "Your sister's a saint. Pays for everything." And everyone nodded like they'd rehearsed it. I just laughed, because the other option was to flip a table. Emma squeezed my arm and whispered, "Don't make a scene." I swallowed the heat, reminding myself, Marines don't lose their bearings in public. Second fray, Mom sent a selfie from a day spa with the caption, "Self-care." On the same day, she texted me, "Honey, the electricity. We're a little behind." I told myself those could both be true. Maybe a group spa day. Maybe a gift from a friend. I turned the volume down on my gut, feeling like it was a radio picking up static. Third fray, I came home on leave. Took Dad to his favorite diner. The waiter asked Emma if she wanted to keep the card on file. Her card, with my name on it. The joint account. She laughed, slid it back into her wallet, and said, "Oh, that one's for the house stuff." House stuff. The waiter didn't blink. My father didn't blink. I blinked for everyone. I tried to start a conversation that night. "Let's look at the monthly budget together," I suggested. Mom said, "Don't be controlling." Dad said, "Don't bring Marine rules into a family home." Emma said, "I am paying for things," and then listed them. Netflix, the dog's vet, her own gym membership so I can help Dad with his exercises. The way she said it made me feel like I'd accused her of a crime. I backed off. I've learned this. Sometimes peace is cheaper than truth. But truth? Truth collects interest. By the time we reached that Sunday night table, I'd been sending money for 8 years. 8 years. I'd covered a $2,800 dental bill for Mom, a $1,200 property tax catch-up, a $900 plane ticket for Emma to Network in Austin, 3 separate emergency tires, and one horrible week where I sent $3,500 after Dad texted me about the bank threatening foreclosure, while I was walking toward a helicopter, trying not to throw up from the adrenaline. So when my father said, "What money?" a switch flipped. Because even if he wanted to pretend, he couldn't pretend I wasn't there. He couldn't pretend the transfers didn't exist. He couldn't pretend that the person he was scolding like a child wasn't the same person holding their whole house together with direct deposits and duct tape. "Okay," I said again, my voice steady now, resolute. "Let's talk." "Don't start," Dad warned. I just put my phone on the table, opened the app, scrolled, and turned the screen so they could all see it. The neat little line of green arrows, all pointing out of me and into them. "Rent," I said, tapping one. "Utilities. Taxes. Roof. Laptop. Sofa. Backsplash. Tires. Vet. Flights. And more rent." Mom folded her arms, trying to regain some control. We didn't ask you to do all that. I laughed, once, a short, bitter sound. You did. You just didn't like using the word ask. You said, we're short, and it's an emergency, and you're our son. Emma's eyes were glassy. Chris, I told you, when my bonus hits. Your bonus hit 3 times. I interrupted, sliding to another screen. 3 credits to your account from your company. And 3 debits from the house card within 24 hours each. Salon. Boutique. Weekend cabin. Her mouth opened. Closed. That's not fair. What isn't fair? I shot back. Dad jabbed a finger. Don't accuse your sister. I didn't raise my voice. Then tell me where the money went. Bills. Mom insisted. Life is expensive. Right, I said. I agree. I see the bills. I pay the bills. Enough. Dad barked. You're embarrassing yourself. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. I've been embarrassed for years. I was embarrassed when you told Uncle Mike that Emma pays for everything. I was embarrassed when the waiter handed her my card. I was embarrassed when I got a fraud alert because the mortgage company thought the number of payments from my account looked suspicious. Silence. Deafening silence. Even the fridge seemed to hold its humming breath. Emma whispered, I didn't mean. I cut her off, gently. I know you didn't mean to lie at first. I think it started as pride. You wanted to be the hero. Mom and Dad wanted a story where they weren't leaning on their son overseas. So you told people you covered it. And at some point, the story felt real. Then the spending started to match the story. Dad stood up, his chair scraping. Get out. Not yet, I said. I slid a printed spreadsheet across the table. I'd made it on base the week before, after that last emergency text. Every transfer. Every label. 8 years of quiet yes. I'm not a bank. I'm not a ghost. I'm your son. And I'm done. Mom's voice went small, but sharp. So, you're abandoning us? No, I said, looking her dead in the eye. I'm setting terms. Terms. Dad sneered. Yes. Boundaries. Here they are. I tapped the paper. I'll pay for needs. Real ones. Verified with bills I can see. No more joint card. No more house account. No more auto pay. If you need help, you ask directly. If I can, I will. If I can't, I won't. And if anybody, tells people that Emma pays for everything, the help stops for a year. I am not negotiating that. Dad laughed. A mean, short sound. You think you can dictate to me in my house? I sat back, my gaze unwavering. I think I can control what I fund. I think I've been doing that silently for years. I'm just putting words to it now. Emma wiped her eyes. Chris, please, don't make them hate me. They don't hate you. I said, my voice softening slightly for her, just a little. They just like the version of you that cost me money. Dad slapped the table. Out. Okay, I said. I stood, tucked my phone into my pocket, and let my hand rest flat on the spreadsheet for one last second. Last thing, I added, looking at my sister, because she deserved something clear. Shame thrives in secrets. I'm not carrying yours anymore. I walked to the door. Nobody followed. On the porch, I felt that strange, dangerous mix. Grief and relief. The sun was too soft. The air smelled like cut grass and hot asphalt. I heard Emma start to cry. Dad's voice rose. Mom's rose to match. I kept moving. My truck door closed with the kind of sound that tells your body a chapter just ended. I sat there, hands on the wheel, and breathed like we're trained to breathe when the OP goes sideways. In, out, count, ground yourself, decide, then go. I went. I thought the silence would be the worst part. It wasn't. The worst was the noise that came instead. Hour 1, 3 missed calls from Mom. Voicemails about family, and how dare you put us on the spot. I let them sit. Hour 2, a text from Emma. I'm sorry. I panicked. I stared at it until the screen went black, then wrote back. We'll figure it out, but it has to be honest. Day 2. Dad posted a photo of him and Emma at the hardware store with the caption, My girl, the one who keeps us going. A little theater for their audience. I didn't take the bait. Day 3. The family group chat blew up. Aunt Linda. We heard Chris is cutting you off. Mom, he's confused. Cousin Jake. Wait, I thought Emma. Dad. She does everything. I typed 3 words. Not anymore. Boundaries. And muted the thread. Then came the practical fallout. I canceled the joint card. The bank rep tried to upsell me on a premium account. I said no and shut the laptop with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I changed the auto pay to 0. My phone stayed quiet until the first of the month, when Mom called at 7:12 a.m. on the dot. "Mortgage is due," she said, already angry. "Send me the statement," I said. "It's the same policy for everyone now." "I don't report to you," she snapped. "Then you don't get my money," I said calmly, and ended the call. Because I've learned that some conversations are just a loop. She sent the statement an hour later. I paid it. That's the thing about boundaries. They're not revenge. They're a fence with a gate. And rules about how the gate works. If you ring the bell politely, and you actually live there, I'll let you in. Emma came by my apartment a few days later, with a grocery bag and big eyes. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, wearing a sweatshirt I recognized from senior year. She hovered just inside the door. "I'm sorry," she said again. "You said that," I answered, softer than I felt. "Why did you do it?" She perched on the edge of the couch that still smelled like fabric cleaner. "It started small," she said. "Mom would say, 'Don't tell Chris about the spa. He'll overreact.' Dad would say, 'People don't need to know our business.' And then people started telling me I was so generous. It felt nice. It was like I could be the good one without doing the hard part. That hard part is my paycheck," I said flatly. "I know." She looked up. "I didn't think you kept track." I smiled, humorlessly. "I'm a Marine. We keep track." She took a breath. "Okay, I'll tell people the truth. I don't want you to impress me," I clarified. "I want you to stop lying." She nodded. "And I'll pay you back." "How?" Silence. She hadn't thought that far. "Start with this," I said. I pulled out an envelope. Inside, a photocopy of the spreadsheet and a sticky note with a monthly number, broken into chunks. "This isn't punishment. It's a plan. 50 a week. You skip, it rolls. You pay early, it shrinks. I'll match whatever you put toward Dad's medical until the debt's cleared. Then we reassess." She stared at the paper like it might bite. "You made a payment plan for me?" "Yeah," I said. "Turns out, I like plans." She sniffed and laughed at the same time. "You're such you." "Thanks," I said. We ate the groceries she'd brought. Eggs, bread, berries. She insisted on doing the dishes. She gave me a hug at the door that felt like both of us were 12 again, trying to apologize for a broken vase. The next week, Mom called to say the power company had messed up the bill. "Send it," I said. She sent a photo of the envelope face, not the actual statement. "Open it," I wrote. She waited 4 hours, then sent the actual bill, which was exactly on time and exactly the amount it always is. I paid it. She texted, "Thank you," with a period, like she was being forced to say it at gunpoint. Dad stayed loud. He left a voicemail that started with, "You're acting high and mighty," and ended with threats about being done with you. Then he texted me a photo of the house with the caption, "You think you own this?" I didn't respond. Instead, I called the bank and took my name off the mortgage account altogether. If I wasn't going to be a ghost owner, I might as well be a person with clean hands. Freedom came in weird shapes. A Saturday morning where I made pancakes and didn't check my phone every 5 minutes. A run without mentally calculating which bill I'd cover next. A night where I sat on the fire escape with a beer, watching the street go gold, and didn't feel responsible for the weather. It wasn't all easy. Guilt is a muscle my family built for me. Mom would send a photo of Dad in a brace, and I'd feel that muscle flex. I'd breathe, count, look at the calendar and the statements, and ask myself, is this a need or a nudge? If it was a need, I helped. If it was a nudge, I didn't. I started to hear the difference. Work changed me in ways I didn't expect. On base, guys who had always called me accountant or dad because I kept everyone on schedule started asking about life stuff. How do you do that? How do you say no without sounding like a jerk? I told them the truth. You can sound like a jerk. You just can't be one. Say the rule. Keep the rule. Be generous inside the rule. I also did something that felt ridiculous and necessary. I opened a new account, labeled Chris Only, in my budgeting app. Every payday, I moved money there first. Rent, food, savings, a line for fun that I actually used. I bought a secondhand guitar and learned 4 ugly chords. I spent a weekend fixing up my truck with parts that didn't come from a bargain bin. I took a woman named Sam to a minor league game and didn't spend the whole time worrying about a text that might yank me out of my seat. Emma started sending the 50 every Friday. Sometimes she sent a screenshot with it, like she needed a sticker. Sometimes she forgot until Sunday and then sent 2. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the muscle we were building. Her learning to carry her own weight. Me learning to stop grabbing at it first. 2 months in, she posted a photo with the caption, "Learning to speak the truth, even when I want to be liked." Mom commented a string of eye-roll emojis. Dad wrote, "Family business is private." I didn't touch any of it. Private for them. Mint, don't expose the parts we're ashamed of. Truth for me. Mint, name the mess so you can clean it. The real shift happened at a birthday dinner for Grandma. I almost didn't go, but I did, because I loved her, and because avoiding a battlefield is not the same as peace. We were all seated when Uncle Mike raised his glass and said to Emma, the one who, I stood up, calm. "Quick correction," I said, not smiling. "For 8 years, I covered the bills." Emma said she did. "That ends now. We're all learning new habits." Fork scraped. Someone coughed. Emma stared at her napkin like it could give advice. Dad's face flushed a color I didn't know he could make. Grandma looked at me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You finally grew a spine," she said. Then she laughed, delighted, and kept eating like she'd been waiting to be served this course for a decade. The table exhaled. People pivoted. Cousin Jake asked me about my last duty station. Aunt Linda complimented Emma's new haircut without mentioning money. The world didn't end. We just stopped lying in public. After dessert, Dad cornered me by the coat rack. "You humiliated me. You did that," I said, my voice even, "when you lied long enough to believe it." He leaned in. "You think you're better than me." I thought about all the times I tried to win by being smaller, by shrinking myself. "No," I said. "I think I'm finally being me." He looked confused, which is what happens when your favorite tool suddenly stops working. He stepped back. "Get out." "I will," I said, sliding my jacket on. "And next month, when the mortgage is due, if you need help, you know the rule." He didn't answer. That was fine. Silence is information. When I got home, there was an envelope under my door. No return address, just my name and Emma's neat handwriting. Inside, $50 in cash and a note that said, "I told Grandma the truth, too." She said, "About time." I put the 50 in a jar on my dresser. I wasn't keeping score anymore. I was keeping evidence that people can change. And I was changing too, in small ways that felt like fresh air. I said yes to a volunteer thing at the local boxing gym, teaching kids how to wrap their hands and keep their feet. I slept. Really slept. I started to make plans that didn't need a contingency for a 2 a.m. crisis call. It turns out there's a lot of life on the other side of what money. There's space. There's the quiet you earn. 3 months after the kitchen table war, Dad called. Not Mom. Dad. He cleared his throat. "Your mother says I should talk to you." I sat in my truck outside the gym, windows down, street humming. "Okay," I said. "Mortgage is due," he said. "Send the statement." I answered. A beat. Then, softer than I'd ever heard from him. "Emma told me she's paying you back." "She is," I said. "She told me. You made a plan." It sounded like a foreign word in his mouth. "I did." He exhaled. "I hate plans." "I know." Silence settled. Not the old kind, the loaded kind. Just a pause where two people check if the bridge can hold. "I shouldn't have said doormat," he managed. "You shouldn't have," I agreed. "But you did. We can't unring it. We can decide what we do next." He coughed. "Send me that budget thing. This spreadsheet." Something in me unclenched. "I'll send a template," I said. "We can go over it. Or you can do it alone. Your call." "Your voice is different," he said suddenly. "Yeah," I said. "Mine." Another beat. "Your mom made chicken," which was his way of saying he missed me. "I'm busy tonight," I said, and let the words stand without apology. "But I can come Sunday after church. 1 hour. We'll talk bills. Not feelings. Not history. Bills." "Deal." "Deal," he said. On Sunday, I showed up with printed copies and a highlighter. We sat at the same table where he'd called me a doormat. The light looked different. Maybe it was me. We mapped the month. Mortgage. Utilities. Dad's PT. The dog's shots. We circled wants in orange. We circled wishful thinking in red. We set 3 calls he had to make himself. We set 2 I promised I'd make if he wrote the questions. The rules were simple. Ask. Tell the truth. Except no. He tried to argue with number 3. I shook my head. "That one's for me," I said. Emma came in halfway through and slid 50 onto the table without a word. Mom hovered, then sat, then asked what APR meant. And I watched my father bite back a joke and actually answer her. It was small. It mattered. No one said thank you that day. We didn't do a group hug. I left with an emptier spreadsheet than usual, and the oddest sensation in my chest, like I'd set down 100-pound pack I'd forgotten, was strapped on. On the drive home, the sunset threw pink at the edges of everything. I rolled the window down. The world smelled like cut grass and exhaust in the last minutes of a long summer day. I thought about 19-year-old me sitting in a barracks, wiring money because love felt like responsibility. I thought about 32-year-old me sitting at a kitchen table, saying words out loud that changed the air. Here's what I know now. Love without boundaries turns into debt with interest. Boundaries without love turn into walls no one can climb. The sweet spot is a fence with a gate and a bell. You're allowed to keep the bell unplugged at night. You're allowed to ask people to knock. I still help my family. I just don't do it in the dark. I still love my sister. I just don't love the story where she's a hero with my wallet. I still answer my mother's call sometimes. And I still hear my father's voice in my head, but now it's quieter than mine. A week after our budgeting summit, I texted Emma a photo of the jar on my dresser. The 50s stacked, uneven, like a broken picket fence. It's not about payment, I wrote. It's about pattern, she replied. I know. I feel it too. Last night, I sat on the fire escape with that secondhand guitar. My fingers still stumble on the G. The city made the usual noise. Somewhere in it, I could hear my own breathing, steady like a metronome. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel useful. I didn't feel like a doormat or a hero. I felt like a person with both feet on the ground. If you asked me for a moral, I'd give you this simple one. I won't let people use me and call it love. I won't confuse silence with peace. I won't fund a lie. I'll show up with receipts. With kindness. With a gate that opens when the bell rings for the right reasons. And when someone says, "What money?" I'll say, "The money I earn. The money I choose." Then I'll choose. That's the whole story. So, I've shared my journey. What about yours? Have you ever had to draw a really hard line with family? Or with anyone you love, even when it felt like everything was going to fall apart? How did you handle it? What did it cost you? And what did you gain? I really want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below.